Good morning.
Good morning, I'm Tanishi. Just waiting on a few more people to join in.
Okay.
Morning, Patricia.
I may need a little lesson on how to access documents while we're on this screen. Is there a little side panel, anything we can access like agenda, the bylaws, or?
So I'm going to share my screen through some parts of the meeting where I'll have the agenda as well as the bylaws. I've got those prepared, so you'll be able to see it on your screen through my computer.
Great. I should have printed out. I'm going to minimize this screen so I can print out the budget. Hold on.
Okay.
Down here, minimize. Let me see, where do I put the budget? I can't see to start my video. I can see you all, but I'm not showing up, and it's still X'd out on my screen.
Okay, I just sent something that should allow you. There you go.
Okay, yeah, there we go. All right.
righty. Let me resend the link to Lisa. Good morning, everyone. We're going to be getting started soon. It's 9:59. We're still waiting for a few board members to join in. And I also want to give a little bit more time for residents to get on the YouTube page. Good morning, everyone. It's just past 10 a.m. We're still waiting for one or two more board members. We are live on YouTube. So this week, we don't have the technical difficulties that we had last time. Let's see, someone's joining here. So we will get started shortly. I still want to give residents time to find us on YouTube. The link has been sent to everyone's email. It's posted on our Facebook webpage. If you're watching, please direct it to any residents you know that would be interested in watching the meeting. We will start shortly.
say something to Kelly?
Hello? Brian,
Yes, sir. Good morning. Can you hear me?
good morning, good morning. All right. Want to see if I was connected.
Yes, you are.
If you ever want to mute, you hit mute and then you unmute.
Oh, if I go stop video, that's gonna pull it.
Yeah.
Good morning, Velma. Okay, we're only waiting for one more board member.
Brenda is trying to get on.
Okay, I will admit her as soon as I see her pop up in the waiting room. going to go ahead and get started at 10:10 in about 2 minutes, which is typical for our meetings.
Mhm. Right.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is now 10:10 a.m. and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call will be a little bit different, obviously, because we're on a live stream of a meeting. So I guess we can acknowledge who's here. Imtanishi St. Julian is present. Patricia Mitchell is present. Al Parker is present. Elton Newton is present. Velma Johnson is present. And Brian Jourdain is present. Does the number of members we have streaming constitute a quorum? You're muted, Tanisha. Let me unmute you.
Oh.
I'm sorry, go
Yes,
ahead.
we just need 4 for quorum, so we have reached the quorum.
Awesome. So we're doing the first ever Lake-Bullard meeting online. This is not ideal. This is not the way we want to conduct business, but during the pandemic, this is how we have to conduct business. So I'm going to share my screen really quick to show the agenda that we have for today. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to begin with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. If we can have those minutes read.
Brian.
Yes,
This
sir.
is Mtamishi.
Yes, sir.
I noticed from the notice, there's a difference in the agenda than that presented in the notice. There were 3 items put on the notice, and there is one more item on the agenda, and that's the 2021 budget resolution.
Yes.
We are allowed to consider that matter, even if it's not on the notice, provided that there is a unanimous approval of the items. So I would make a motion that the board approves this agenda.
Absolutely, yes. The budget resolution was added more than 24 hours ago, but we can move to amend the agenda to include the 2021 budget resolution. And just to let everyone know that we're not voting on the budget resolution. We're not voting on any issues today, any of the main agenda items. But Tanishi has moved that we amend the agenda to include the 2021 budget resolution. Can I get a second?
I'll second that. This is Velma Johnson.
It has been seconded by Velma Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? The motion passes and the agenda has been amended to include the 2021 budget resolution. Thank you for that. You reminded me, Tanishi. So now we can go to the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Lisa, do we have those? You're muted, Lisa.
Okay. So I have partial minutes. At that meeting, we had, let's see, I'm trying to bring it back up here on my screen. We had the bylaws on the agenda, but I think they were tabled to the next meeting. We had election of officers and Al Parker was elected. Patricia Mitchell was elected as well. We had security updates, and that was the gist of the meeting.
Okay. I believe Brenda Hogan has just joined us. Can we have that reflected? I'm not sure if she can speak yet. Brenda,
Yeah,
have you-
I'm here. I'm on my cell phone, but I can't get the video. All I can do is listen. I'm trying my email about Cox and it's not letting me. It's saying I can't get in right now.
Okay. Well, we have a full attendance of the board at this moment. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the partial minutes from the previous meeting?
Well, I'll make a motion. This is Brenda. I'll make a motion that we receive the minutes from the last meeting.
It has been moved by Brenda. Can I get a second?
I second that. This is Velma Johnson.
It has been seconded by Velma. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I have to oppose. We have to, if we're going to present the minutes, we have to present, especially in this context. What traditionally we have done is the minutes were usually in writing and presented to the membership as they come into the meeting, but unfortunately under these circumstances, we have been unable to do that, and probably be more prudent if we would be able to read the full minutes. So I ask that, so I'm opposed to approving these minutes, and hopefully this meeting we would have the minutes typed out and read at the next meeting in the event that we have to have another Zoom meeting. And it looks like with this COVID, we're probably going to have another one. So I'd ask that in the future that the minutes be prepared and read.
That's a very valid point. This is a difficult time and we have to do things a little bit different. And I'm willing to entertain a motion to reconsider approving the minutes, and we can have them approved at the next meeting if necessary. Would anyone like to make that motion to reconsider?
I'll make the motion. Brenda, would you reconsider?
Yes, I will. Yeah. As we're presenting it to the board, that we reconsider these minutes until the next minutes when they're fully typed out.
I second that motion. This is Velma.
So it has been moved by Brenda and seconded by Velma again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. So we will try to have the meeting minutes for the next meeting. So we'll have 2 sets of minutes to read for the next meeting. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Actually, before we do that, so we've allowed residents to submit questions via email before the meeting, and we are currently allowing them to submit questions during the meeting. So if you would like to submit a question during the meeting for any agenda item, you can submit the questions to noelaservices@gmail.com. noelaservices@gmail.com. Most of the residents have this email address. If you send us a question, we will entertain that question towards the end. Now, before this meeting began, we did get some questions that didn't pertain to an agenda item. And I think it's best that I read them now. There are 2 questions, technically 3 questions that were sent before. And I'm going to go ahead and put those questions on the screen. If you will bear with me for a second, just share my screen. So can everyone see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first question that was sent, this wasn't pertaining to an agenda item, but because the way the question was posed, I figured we should actually go ahead and address it at the beginning of the meeting. So the question was submitted on Thursday, June 25th at 4:32 p.m. by Darlene James. What is the reason the Lake-Bullard Board is having meetings in which the residents cannot speak to voice concerns about agenda items, ask questions, or apprise the board and members of about essential matters pertaining to the neighborhood? So we're not having a meeting where residents are not allowed to speak, voice concerns, et cetera, and so on. This question was just read. It was sent by a resident, and it's actually speech. It's being read and it's being addressed. We were allowing residents to submit questions before the meeting and during the meeting. This is in compliance with the open meeting laws and requirements. I believe that we are in compliance with this. Does any board member would like to make a comment or anything on this issue?
This is M. Tanishi. I have looked at the open meeting law. I have recently pulled the open meetings law. Excuse me. I have recently pulled the open meetings law from the Attorney General's website. Tried to get Attorney General's opinions, and I see nothing that suggests that members have to participate on every single question on this matter. I think what we're doing under the circumstances is reasonable, and I see absolutely no violation of the public meetings law.
Neither do I. And in fact, we still are allowing residents to speak on every agenda item that we have, which I believe is fair. This is not the ideal situation, but again, we're dealing in different times. So I'm going to share my screen and read the next question. So the second question is, it was actually a repeat of the first. I just believe this was an oversight, but it reads as I'm required on June 25th at 4:35 from Darlene James. What is the reason the Lake-Bullard Board is having meetings in which residents cannot speak to voice concerns about agenda items, ask questions, or apprise the board and members of essential matters pertaining to the neighborhood? So again, we just answered that question. And to address it further, we're in a pandemic that is disproportionately killing residents of color. We're currently not allowed to hold an in-person meeting during phase 2 as outlined by our mayor and governor. So we have to adapt to difficult times, and compromising and doing a meeting in this way is not silencing anyone. We want as much speech as we can get. We want everyone's questions and concerns to be answered. And I plan on doing that, and I have always done that. So let's go to the third question.
Brian,
Yes,
Brian, this
yes.
is Brenda. You can let me in now. It says
Okay,
I'm on the computer. See if you can let me in and I can hang up.
There we go. I just sent you, so yep, you should have just joined.
Okay, I'm in. I'm gonna hang up.
So the third question is, why are Lake-Bullard, I'm sorry, on June 25th at 5:23 p.m. from Darlene James, why are Lake-Bullard board members not kept abreast of occurrences in the subdivision, such as crimes in the neighborhood, complaints about security, cameras in the subdivision not working, board unable to use subdivision website, and why aren't some board members knowledgeable about issues in the neighborhood in order to make wise decisions when voting on issues? So I'm going to say Lake-Bullard board members are kept abreast of all important events in the subdivision. However, there's always room for improvement. I can admit that during the pandemic that I've not spoken to board members as often as I would like, but we're living through extraordinary times. Most of us have had to figure out, how this new life is working. Some of us had to figure out different ways to work, earn a living. Some of us have been diagnosed with COVID. Others had their lives upended by it. Some of us have just had scares and needed to be quarantined. This includes myself. I needed to quarantine for over 2 weeks for the safety of my family. I was fortunate to receive a negative test, but my communication during these times, has it been the best? Absolutely not. But as a compassionate human being, I give all board members and residents alike a little leeway if they had to figure out how to handle this pandemic. I will say I've taken every call from every resident, every text message I've responded to, every board member that's called me, I've answered. During this time, no one's been ignored by anyone from the board, at least that I've seen or that I'm aware of. But in communicating, we can always do better. So that's something that we will always keep improving on. But I do ask that people understand that this has been a difficult time for everyone. This has not been business as usual since February. And things are getting better, but we all have to understand that we're doing the best we can. I don't know if anyone has a comment or a question or a concern about that, but that's how I feel about it.
This is Tanishi. If any of the residents have any comments, any information that they feel like the board should know about, certainly you can email it to the that email address that's on the notice that you get, and Lisa will get that information to all the board members. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we are going to go back to the agenda. And just to put it on your screen so everyone can see where we are, I'm going to share my screen again. And so we are now going to the proposed bylaws. And I am going to put the bylaws on the screen, and I will let Tanishi take the lead on this.
All righty. We've had residents that have raised the issue more than 18 months ago about the Lake-Bullard Homeowners Association and Lake-Bullard Neighborhood Improvement District having bylaws. We began to look into the archives to see if we can locate and find old bylaws. We were not able to locate any other than the old Lake-Bullard Homeowners Association bylaws that were drastically out of date. The Lake-Bullard Neighborhood Improvement District never had any bylaws. Because of that, and because of the situation of the vote of the residents and the way the law was written that allows the board to govern both the Lake-Bullard Neighborhood Improvement District as well as the Lake-Bullard Homeowners Association, I began to draft a joint bylaws which would allow the board to basically govern how we operate both of the organizations. In the beginning, the first section of the bylaws, again, for those people that may be on the YouTube and wanted to know where they can get access to the bylaws, again, if you look at your notice, you can access the bylaws from nolaservices@gmail.com. That's NOELA services@gmail.com. In the first section, basically what I do is give the purpose and the history of the two organizations and how, after legislation, which was again approved by the residents in an election, how the organizations interrelate with each other. We talk about the next section, the boundaries of the organizations, which is really the Lake-Bullard subdivision, and we give the boundaries of Bullard, Dwyer, Berg, and Lake Forest Boulevard. The next section deals with the governance and establishes that the residents vote for the board, the Lake-Bullard Homeowners Association, and that board then can function as the board of the Lake-Bullard Commissions, the Board of Commissions of the Lake-Bullard Neighborhood and Improvement District. From there, there is an election of officers. The election of officers can occur each year. Those officers are elected by the board to run for that particular year. The terms of offices for the members of the board runs a 3-year term. To what occurred over the years is when we had a transition of secretaries, and we've had about 4 or 5 secretaries over the years, pre-Katrina and post-Katrina. We've had many cases where the minutes were not, well, we don't have access to the minutes, and therefore it was difficult to acquire the terms of office of each of the board members. We check with the State Ethics Board, we check with the Secretary of State, we check with others to try to see if we can determine terms of office, and we could not. So we put in the bylaws for this new proposed bylaws, a suggested terms of office for the present board for an election to occur. And you could see the names of the present board and the dates where these elections can occur. The reason why they occur, and it's proposed the next election would be in March, is we are hoping, with our fingers crossed, that we'll be able to have live meetings at that time where the membership can participate and we can have an election in a meeting, and we will not have to be face elections on a Zoom meeting or YouTube or whatever. So
Absolutely.
that's why it's set up that way.
And I just wanted to chime in here for a second to just let everybody know. So it says that members may serve, basically they're saying that we would decide the staggering members by lot, but we thought that it would be a better idea if the members who have been on the board longer, their terms expired sooner. So myself, my term would expire in 2021, but our two newest board members, Patricia and Brenda, they would expire in 2022. We thought that was a fair way to do it without drawing lots, because I mean, I've been on the board for longer than others, so I feel like I should have a shorter term and come up for re-election sooner.
I'm sorry. Finish your thought. I just had a comment after you finish. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm finished. Please go ahead.
I know, just I mentioned, information, my name isn't meant included in the
That was,
current.
Al, that was a clerical error on my part.
No
Forgive me.
problem.
Forgive me. The intent
Yeah.
was because you're the new officer.
I
To
understand.
put your name in that second category where your term is expiring in 2022.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate that residents, if you guys have any questions or concerns or suggestions or improvements to, we're not voting on the bylaw. So if you have any suggestions or improvements to these bylaws, please reach out to the board at any way you can. Call us, email us, text us, let us know. I would like to point out the things in here that I think would be extremely relevant for the residents to know. So another thing I want to point out is that the election of all of the board members is done by the residents. So this is saying that we shall be elected by the residents in attendance at that meeting in March, which hopefully, like Tanisha said, we will be able to have in person. I just wanted to point that out again. So Tanisha, you can continue if you like.
All righty. To continue from the point that Brian was making, the members or the residents elect the board members, but each year the board members get together and elect the officers. The officers are president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. Now, one issue that when Brian and I were talking about this issue, and recently, Brian brought to my attention that while the meetings suggest that the elections take place in March, Brian suggested, and I certainly agree, that in that first sentence under officers, that we should put the term in that the elections take place annually to make it clear that the officers are elected annually by the board members. So
every year, all board members, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, every year in March. Is it the same meeting where the residents elect the members, or is it? Do we need two separate meetings? I was a little bit unclear on that. Or can we do them in the same meeting?
It would say the members of the Board of Commission shall select from among themselves on an annual basis. That's the phrase that we would be including in this, on an annual basis, a president and such other officers as they deem appropriate.
Gotcha.
And I will make these additions.
And we can have that sent out to the residents.
And we'll make it, and we'll put the new, the one with these two changes, Al's name and as well as this one, on the new posted draft of the bylaws. But that doesn't mean that the residents should not, or the board members should not make other comments, because we have until hopefully the next board meeting to make further comments.
Absolutely. And again, we encourage all residents to send any comments, questions, suggestions, improvements, anything that they see fit to go into or be removed from these bylaws. So again, you can request a copy of the bylaws by emailing noellaservices@gmail.com. Please do. You should already have them if you have signed up for emails from Lake-Bullard, but please send anything.
The next section, if you would look at page 4 of meetings, and the way we're designing the bylaws is to have 4 regular meetings per year. Now, we can always have special meetings during the year if something comes up that requires action of the board. But 4 regular meetings, 1 in January. And at that meeting will be primarily directed towards designated a kind of a financial review of how we did the previous year. This would be an opportunity for our CPA to make a presentation, do a summary of how we both kept the books and how we performed budget-wise that year. The second meeting would be in March or soon thereafter. And the purpose, that would be our annual meeting each year. That would be the meeting where we would have an election of board members if it was necessary that year, depending upon the terms of office, and would have the election of officers for that year. The next meeting would occur sometime in July or August, and that would be to approve the annual budget for the following year. Then the last regular meeting of the year would take place sometime in November or soon thereafter, in order to do kind of like a strategic planning to do a kind of review of strategic needs of the subdivision, because that could affect how we may have to do amendments to the budget, or it helps us in evaluating how we would handle needs for the following year. So that's how that section would be covered. The next section deals with the quorum. The quorum is a majority of the board, the numbers of the board meeting. Now we have 7 board members, so a quorum remains at 4. The meeting procedures, we're still generally using Robert's Rules of Order. If we can, we would like to encourage our residents to volunteer to be block captains, to help us in various ways to communicate with our residents and to help organize our residents to do a better job in doing things for the subdivision. The other things, let's see, all checks and notes of corporation shall be signed by. Yes, the checks, as we do today, we require 2 officers to sign checks. It's a way of, we do checks and balances. We do, it's not in the bylaws, but it's in the state law. Certainly every year, we have a CPA look at our documents and all our finances, and we send our reports to the legislative auditor each year. And the other issues are just technical issues, and that's basically the bylaws.
Okay, does any board members have any questions or comments on the board? I'm sorry, on the bylaws?
No.
Okay, so I'm trying to So we did receive 2 questions about the bylaws during the meeting. I can't put the questions up on the screen, but I will read them. This one was sent on June 27th at 10:39 from Andra Harris. And it says the bylaw stipulates 7 members, but there are only 6 servicing. What position is open? Do we have a typo or in there, or are we in the bylaws? I'm trying to see if we're,
Oh, that probably, we have 7 board members. And the reason why that question may have come up is because of my failure, that clerical error of failing to put Al's name in the bylaws.
okay, that makes sense. So we currently do not have, to answer the question, we currently do not have an open position, but there is a typo in the bylaws that will be corrected the next time it is sent out. We have one more question. Let's see. Saturday, June 27th at 10:34 from Ida Mae McConduit. Will each homeowner receive a copy of the bylaws shown here? So we've sent out a digital version of the bylaws to every resident who has requested one. We've sent out a digital version to every resident whose email we have on file with Lake-Bullard, and also on the mail-in postcard that we sent out. We actually have on the postcard that was mailed to every resident. I know you can't really see it too well on here, but on the postcard, we have instructions on who they need to email to receive a copy of the bylaws. So that's how we've disseminated them, but we have not printed physical copies and put them on everyone's door. We've given instructions on Facebook, via email, and via actual mail on how you can acquire a copy. And if you know anyone who wants a copy, please, by all means, share it. I'll share it with anyone as well. Does any other board member want to comment on how we're disseminating the bylaws? Okay. I believe, and I'm double checking, that we did have a question about the bylaws sent previous to the meeting. So I am going to share my screen again and read the comment. So I can share my screen for the comments that were sent in advance. For the ones that have not been, I can only read them aloud. So I'm going to share my screen again. And that is not what this is what we need. So question on bylaws on June 25th, 2020 at 6:56 p.m. from Darlene James. Can we have a committee that includes board members and residents to review the proposed bylaws and compare them to prior bylaws and have feedback by residents before the board votes on the proposed laws? So I can tell you guys how I feel about it, and then I'll let other board members as well. So the first thing, again, we're not voting on the bylaws today, we're only discussing them. But I wouldn't be in favor of a committee being formed to review the bylaws, because I'm in favor of every resident reviewing them, every resident being able to submit question or comment. I don't want it to be a small group that is the only ones who have the ability to make suggestions for the bylaws. I want the entire subdivision to do that. So I don't think it would be necessary, since we're giving over a month's time to review them. We're accepting people sending questions, comments via email, text. If you see me while I'm taking out my trash, you can ask me about the bylaws. I don't think we need a committee, but I'll entertain the views of the board.
Question, Mr. I think you mentioned earlier that there were no previous bylaws, that this is really the first official bylaws of the organization. Is that correct?
Our last bylaws that I did see was bylaws that existed, I think, when you were president of the Lake-Bullard homeowners association many years ago.
Yeah, but that was just for the homeowners.
Is woefully outdated. It was done before the Lake-Bullard Neighborhood Improvement District was created. It was incompatible with the legislation, and so but there's nothing else. There was no bylaws ever done for the Lake-Bullard Neighborhood Improvement District.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or any other comments on forming a committee? Okay, we are going to move on to the next agenda item. So the next agenda item, and I'm not going to share my screen just yet because I want to give a little explanation. The next agenda item is on a proposal from Flock Safety. Flock Safety is a camera company that does video tracking of license plates, so license plate reader cameras. And they wanted to give a presentation explaining why we should install them in our neighborhood. One of the reasons why we wanted to look into this, or why we even considering it, is because many of you all know the camera program has been stalled for quite some time. So last year we voted to allow or to go forward with putting the safe cams on residents' homes, the ones that tie directly into NOPD and could be used by NOPD if you dial 911. Well, we're ready to go with that program, but if you remember the first camera program that we had, we got pushback from the residents. Residents in the strategic locations that were outlined by security professionals did not and still do not want to put cameras on their home. In some cases, they also are not answering the doors, or we've left notes on people's houses to discuss this with them, but we've been having a very hard time getting those cameras installed. Currently, we have 3 residents who have actually signed the waiver to have the camera on the homes. We need 5 for the security company to get started. And we don't just need any 5 residents, we need them to be in the strategic locations so it makes sense. So we're spending Lake-Bullard's dollars wisely. So the camera program has been installed. The pandemic has not helped. Residents, including myself, not wanting to go out and interact with other residents face to face makes it a little bit difficult to go and get approval from some people. So we're at a little bit of a standstill with that. The money is still there for it and can be used, but this proposal would eliminate the need to put cameras on residents' homes. I'm not saying that I am for or against the proposal. I am just going to play a video that was sent to us. The presenter unfortunately could not be with us today. I put that blame on me because we were supposed to have this meeting 2 weeks ago, and obviously we had technical difficulties, so he couldn't present today, but he gave us a video, and hopefully we can share it. If we cannot share it, we'll just try to get him to present at another time. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And we're going to go to Flock Safety.
Free. Hey everybody, this is Chase Ferguson at Flock Safety. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to create this quick little video.
Can you guys see and hear?
In our license plate reading cameras in the community. Our cameras are infrastructure free, which means they will be able to capture anything that triggers the camera from an infrastructure free setup. So solar panels, cellular, LTE, the whole shebang. As well as, since we're motion activated, we'll get whatever triggers the camera. So vehicles, yes, but also pedestrians, bicyclists, things like that. Our cameras will be able to sort through all that data and allow you to search through it here in the portal. You all determine who can log in here. You all own this data, so you can determine who can have access to it. You can search through, every vehicle over here, which cameras on your network you want to view through, and then the day and time frame. So if something happened, May 1st, 8:30 to 10:30, you could search through every vehicle that came into your community on the specific day and time and find the license plate, which is the most actionable piece of evidence that law enforcement's going to need to solve crime. Our cameras will get about 5 to 7 still frame images of each vehicle as it drives through the community. So something like this, be able to get the view of the vehicle as it comes into your community. Our cameras will read the tag for you over here, as well as know that this belongs to a white Toyota van that's only been in the community once in the past 30 days. Be timestamps down in the bottom right-hand corner there. And if this is the vehicle you were looking for, you could hand this over to law enforcement. Now, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you could hand all of this over to law enforcement. But if you did know that you were looking for a specific vehicle, you could just search through it here. So if you were looking for example, a specific gray or black pickup truck, you could come in here and say, hey, show me every gray or black pickup truck and find everything that matches that description. There's only 4 of them. We can also internalize a list of tags that belong to your residents so that you can say, show me every non-resident that came in to the community on a specific day and time. We'll capture regular tags, temp tags, no tags at all to really get whatever triggers the camera. At nighttime, this is what it looks like. Get a very clear image of the license plate, but still also know that it belongs to a white van based off the silhouette our cameras can see. I can't really see it, but our cameras can, based off the taillight, silhouette, things like that. We know that this belongs to a Toyota gray SUV. If we wanted to see how often this vehicle has been in the community during the daytime, you can just click view in daytime and it'll populate with every image that vehicle coming during daytime hours. Again, you can download this image for however long you would like and email it to law enforcement. You can just share this with local law enforcement or just make law enforcement a user on the system up here and they can pull footage on your behalf. Like I said, I just wanted to create this quick little video. It by all means does not cover everything and isn't going to win a best picture for, an Oscar for best picture or anything like that. But I wanted to create a quick little resource. And as always, if you'll have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. So that's a much shorter presentation than the one that I was given. And I can just tell you a little bit more about it, what they say they can do and how it works. So the cameras that they use are not on any resident's home. They would actually be installed on the, I guess, the city's property, right past your sidewalk. It will be installed there on a tall pole. And it doesn't require the power of a resident's home or the internet. It uses solar panels to get its power. And as he said, it has LTE signals so that it's using a wireless internet that is not any residence in order to stay connected. They maintenance the cameras and they do that on their own. If they see that they're down, they automatically come out and do that. That's part of the package because you don't buy the camera and then you're done. You actually are paying yearly. So you technically don't own the camera. You're paying a subscription service basically for access to the camera in each neighborhood or each subdivision, wherever they're put. They claim that by being able to track every vehicle that comes in and out of the subdivision, that being able to give that information to NOPD should drastically reduce crime. I agree and disagree with that statement. I mean, just knowing the cars that come in and out, that's a very important tool to have, but it's not going to eliminate crime. Will it give us evidence if there is a crime? If we had a license plate reader on every entrance and exit for these cameras, then we would see every vehicle. So if someone hopped out of a car and then started pulling on door handles, we would know that license plate. But we would have no actual video evidence of them breaking in cars unless they do it in those specific locations. So this would be more used for after the fact, tracking a car that may have carried criminals who were pulling on car door handles. But I also take a little bit of issue with that because most of the kids that are stealing, breaking in cars, they're not using their own car. They're using a stolen car. So we would have a very limited amount of time to catch them. So if they steal a car, drive in our subdivision, pull on car door handles, and then abandon that car, then this footage doesn't really help us. That's my opinion. Is it still a good tool? Is it something that can help keep Lake-Bullard safe? Absolutely. But he did not include in his video presentation the price. And I'm going to say what I remember it was. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was $2,000 per camera per year, which is very expensive, which would be prohibitively expensive if we were to put a camera on every entrance and exit. I believe it would be $12,000 a year, I think. How many entrances, anyone know offhand, all of the entrances and exits?
I think it's
Five.
about 8.
Five
Well,
full.
If we include the, yeah, about 7. If we include the lake, the last count I did was, strategically, we needed about 8 cameras, but I think that it also included looking at the, not the lake, the canal. Because we're talking about we were looking at foot traffic at that time.
Yeah, so these cameras would not help us with the canal at all. It wouldn't work since there's no vehicle traffic on the canal. So one thing that I was thinking is, so maybe a combination of license plate readers as well as the cameras on residents' homes could be beneficial. But again, I'm not in favor or against this proposal. I'm still weighing it because it's very expensive. And let's say we add just 1 or 2 of those cameras, well, that's $4,000 a year in addition to the money that we would have to spend on the safe cams. You know, Lake-Bullard, we're not made of money, obviously. So this is just something I'm going to see if we can get the full presentation, because it does go into a lot more detail, things that I don't feel like I can relate to the community. So maybe we'll try to see if we can get the full presentation for the next meeting and maybe allow you guys to ask questions to him as well, because I had several when I spoke with him, and I'm sure you all will as well. I was hoping to get the whole presentation, but obviously the limitations don't allow it today.
If I may, just briefly, I like the fact that the cameras can identify the make and model and color of the car even at night. The reading of the license plates, I don't think that's gonna have a big effect on anything. Most of the times these kids are putting stolen license plates on the cars they're using, or as you mentioned, the cars are stolen, or they don't have any tags on them at all.
Yes, and that was one of my questions and concerns with him, and his answer to that was basically, well, if you give NOPD access to this in real time, they would know that the car is stolen and be able to track them in real time, possibly before they dump the car, or even with the fake license plate or a different license plate. But that would presume that NOPD has the time, resources, and manpower to actually do that in real time, which we know New Orleans East has and has been for a long time underserved by NOPD. So having the tool and then having NOP with the ability to use the tool are 2 different things.
Brian, a comment I made, I did talk to the gentleman at one time. I didn't have a long conversation, but that issue of where would the cameras go came up. And I raised the issue of I questioned him whether or not the cameras could go on a city pole. And he mentioned that they have their own poles that they could put up. I asked him, where would the poles go if not on public property? Then there was a kind of question mark in his eyes. He didn't know. And the obvious issue would have to ask the residents at each corner how to put that up on their property.
So yes, and I think
he have their own private poles that we have to have and put it up there, and it's going to have to be on one of our residents' property. So I don't want to poison the conversation, but I'm just saying this statement that he could put it up on city poles. I don't know if that's true.
So when he spoke to me, I'm guessing he had a little bit more information because of your question. So he did say they would prefer to put them on city poles. And when I explained to him, well, that's probably not going to happen, he said that they could use their poles, and they have a process that they use to get approval from the city to put their own poles up. He said it does delay how long it takes to actually get the cameras installed, because the city has to approve, and it moves at whatever pace the city moves at. But he said there is a process that they've done and used in other cities successfully, where they would be able to put their own pole up. So they can't just decide, we're going to put this on the opposite end of the sidewalk. They do need permission, so there is a process. But they said they always do try to ask the city for permission to just use their poles first, because then that's easy. And they say some cities are okay with that. I'm not really, I've asked that question to some of our city leaders about using their poles for even the safe cams. And I've never really received a yes or a no. So I don't know how the city would react with that, but the question has been asked, and it's never been answered, because I don't think anyone wants to make a statement affirmative or negative on that. So we did get a few questions on the camera issue. Let me see. On June 27th at 10:55 a.m. from Andra Harris. Are the funds that were previously earmarked for the cameras still a line item on the budget? Also, will additional funding be needed? And Tanishi, can you respond to that?
We have placed a line item on the budget for the last 3 years. We have not spent that money, so therefore those funds are still in the reserves that are held by the Board of Liquidation City Debt. So each year we're required to appropriate some funds for the camera program. As you will see in the 2021 budget, more money has been appropriated, but it's there in the event that we figure out what we're going to do with the camera program. In the event we need more money, the board can vote to amend the budget. But if we don't spend, we spend less than that amount, or we don't spend that amount, the money just stays at the Board of Liquidation City Debt.
So the money is still there. It's still safe in our accounts. Thank you.
That's correct.
We have another question on June 27th at 10:56 a.m. from Darlene James. Do we currently have any cameras working in the neighborhood? To be quite honest, the old camera program is not working. ICAM was the name of the vendor that was approved to put the cameras on the homes, and they have stopped working. This is part of the reason why we are trying to do the new camera program, because the previous vendor was not living up to our standards. Those cameras are they 2 or 3 years old? I can't remember. That this was voted on before I was president. I was a board member at the time and voted in the affirmative, but I believe this was either 2 or 3 years ago, and we've had several issues with the cameras over the years. They've stopped working. They're spotty. At night, they're terrible. You cannot see anything. So the reason why we're trying to move forward with the new camera program is because the old cameras are not working properly. And in this case, they're actually not working at all. Now, we got exactly what we paid for. We did not have a servicing contract with ICAM for them to come out, because that was cost prohibitive as well. We could not afford to have them come out or pay whatever, I forget the monthly cost was, but no, to answer that question, those are not working. And the reason why they're not working is, well, why we're trying to move forward with the new camera program. Does anyone else want to comment or have a question about the previous question? Okay. So we do have one more question. It's not related to an agenda item. And what I'm going to do is after after we've gone through the agenda items, any other questions that are not related to the agenda, I'm going to read and then we can comment on those. So there is one question in the queue. Please, if I forget someone, please remind me that we have a question to read at the end of the agenda. So I'm going to share my screen again. And we are going to go back to the agenda. So we've just finished the proposed bylaws. Again, we're not voting on that or even the next agenda item, the budget resolution. And I apologize. I did the flock safety proposal out of order. I apologize for that. Do we need to do anything technically about that, M. Tanishi?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to the budget resolution. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put up the budget resolution on the screen for everyone to be able to view. Let me just get that prepared really quick.
I'd appreciate if you put the budget up. The resolution is the standard resolution that we have used every single year.
Okay, no problem. I put it on the
Changing
screen.
of the date.
Yeah, I just put it on the screen and scroll through it really quickly. So here we go. This is the budget resolution for 2021. Again, we are not voting on this. This is the standard language, as M. Tanishi was saying, that we've used for a very long time. And this is the actual, and I'm going to see if I can minimize it a little bit so we can have the entire, there we go. Can everybody see that clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, and again, I will defer to M. Tanishi on the budget resolution.
All right, this proposed budget for 2021 is basically the same budget that we have for 2020, except I took $1,000 from the 2020 camera line item, put $500 in the meeting line item, and put $500 in the contingency line item. The reason why I'm proposing that change in the 2021 budget is because of the Zoom meetings and because we have an increase of notices, mail notices, which costs us more. We need more money in the meetings line item to cover those costs of notifications of meetings. And I put the other $500 in the contingency budget in the event that we have other kinds of, let's say, contingencies in terms of in past years, we've had a little additional money in terms of beautification that we just didn't project. For example, a sprinkler system that broke that we needed to get fixed. Right now, it's a possibility that we're working on that we're going to use the 2020 contingencies for is to spend money to try to get those, we're going to be getting those faded Lake-Bullard signs replaced. And that will require just a little bit more money than a line item beautification money. And that's why we have the contingency of line item. So that's the only, everything else is the same as the 2020 budget, except for that reduction of $1,000 in the camera line item, of which $500 is going into the meeting line item and $500 is going into contingency line item.
So I have a question, if you don't mind. Well, one, I'll make a comment first. So the increased budget for the meetings, if the pandemic obviously comes to an end, which we all hope and pray, then that cost will go down, correct? We just wouldn't incur it and that money would just be absorbed back into the liquidation fund.
Well, I'm not suggesting that I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for purposes of budgeting.
Exactly. I'm just saying.
We don't
that-
know what the future is going to hold, but I can tell you when we decided that we're going to change the notice, in that every time we have a board meeting that we're going to use the mails to notify every resident rather than just putting up signs, we found that the mail has been more effective
Absolutely.
in notifying the residents than others. It has cost us more money.
Okay.
That's what we're speaking to. Now, what the future will hold and how many meetings we'll have, we'll just have to see, and we'll make that evaluation next year.
Absolutely. My next question is in regards of the website. So the website has very little traffic, and in all honesty, it's not maintained very well because I don't have the technical knowledge on how to maintain a website. But my question to the board and to the residents as well, and I would love any feedback from the residents on this. Do we need a website? Is it? I don't believe it's a requirement for the homeowners association, and because it doesn't get that much traffic, is that somewhere where we can save money and actually just our emails work very well? I've noticed that our residents respond to our emails. If we can send out all public meeting minutes and things like that on the on via email and through our Facebook page, is that sufficient?
Can I speak to that?
Yes, sir, please.
I think you're correct. There's no requirement by law that we have a website, but
Did we lose you, Tanishi?
It seems to be frozen.
the last meeting.
I'm sorry, Tanishi, can you repeat all of that? You froze for a second and we missed that.
While you are correct that there is no legal requirement that we have a website, I personally believe that a website is a convenient place for the residents to go to get information, such as the minutes of the last board meeting, to get, let's say, these proposed bylaws, and to get information. Our newsletter, for example, as we put out a newsletter, we could put it on the website. I just think in these modern times, other agencies are using a website in which to communicate with their constituencies. And I think it's just convenient for us to do so. What is the cost? What is the technology? I can't answer that. But
okay.
Personally, I would like to have a website.
Okay, well, and it's not a bad idea to have a website. I just think if we have one, then we as a board and myself as a president, we need to maintain it better. And I don't have that technical knowledge to do that. So we're going to look for a way to maintain it better, because if it's there, it's got to give the information that you just said. The minutes, it's got to give the bylaws, it's got to give the open meeting laws, and it's got to give the budgetary information. So that's fine, as long as we can put together a plan to make sure that it is serviced better and updated more frequently. Because, as I said, right now I just don't have that that ability to do that.
Brian, this, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
Brian, this is Velma Johnson. I was wondering, do we have anyone in our body of in our community that can help us maintain that website? Because I do think it's an important tool. However, I think a lot of people are not aware of it. I do look at it myself sometimes, but it is not up to date, like you said. Do we have anyone on the board or in our Lake-Bullard community that could help us maintain it, or that would like to volunteer to help us maintain it and keep it up to par like we should?
That's a great point. We can put out an email asking if any residents would be able to assist us with that. So we can do that shortly after the meeting. Someone else had a question?
Yeah, if I like that idea of maintaining the website, but if we don't have the expertise, I was wondering as an alternative if we could have a private Facebook page
We do have a private Facebook page.
and use that in its place.
So we do have a private Facebook page, and it has actively been putting out this meeting notice. And going forward, it'll put out more. But I think they're right. We'll go ahead and try to find a way to maintenance the website, seeing if we can do it for as cheap as possible. Again, you know, it's always monetary. We did receive 2 questions on this budget on June 27th at 11:13 a.m. Darlene James wrote, "What is the current balance in our account?" Tanishi, can you speak to this? I'm not sure if you're muted or not.
I'm pulling the latest report from the Board of Liquidation City Debt. So hold on, please. Let me see if I can pull it.
While you're pulling that, I'll just we had one more comment. We definitely will go back to that, but on Saturday, June 27th at 11:15 a.m., Andra Harris wrote, "We absolutely need a website. However, if you can save money, that would be great. I could maintain your website if you make a motion to do so at the next meeting if all board members agree." So we've already got a volunteer.
Sounds good.
That
That
sounds good.
sounds great to me. Thank you, Andra.
Yes, thank you, Andra. At the next board meeting, we will go ahead and make a motion that seems like it'll carry. And whenever Tanishi is ready, we can answer, I believe that was Darlene James's question.
The question, the last report sent to me by the Board of Liquidation City Debt showed that we have about $62,714.74. That was their February report.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any additional questions on the budget? Okay, with that, we are going to move on to the next agenda item, which I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to remind everybody of where we are. And again, I apologize for doing the flock security out of order. Before I do that, we did receive one more comment on the budget. On Saturday, June 27th at 11:20 a.m., Andra Harris wrote, "I do not use Facebook due to BLM, which I believe to stand for Black Lives Matter, as sure as many others have boycotted them as well." And that's why I think we all agree with you that we're going to keep the website and are gracious that you have offered your services to maintain it. So even if you don't participate or use Facebook, the website will be maintained by you. Thank you for that again. I really do appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna go on to the agenda again, and we're going to do a security update. For this, I will ask Chief Rowe if he can just give us an update on the recent crime in Lake-Bullard. And I do have a few questions that I would like addressed as well after that. But if you just want to give us a general idea of the security goings on in Lake-Bullard, I guess since the pandemic's begun.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to
actually speaking your meeting today. It's a blessing that, that everybody can get over this COVID-19. Crime has been down in Lake-Bullard. COVID had a lot to do with it because we had a lockdown that took place. And now that the city is opening back up, we have other. Can y'all see me again? Okay. We had other issues. Actually, the crime wasn't in Lake-Bullard, it was in McKendall Estates. There was a shooting that took place, I say about 2 weeks ago in McKendall Estates, and it was your officer that was working Lake-Bullard that was able to apprehend the guy for NOPD. And so he was in the corridor on Lake-Bullard, and as the shootout it was a rolling shootout that took place in McKendall Estate, and it was the officer that was working Lake-Bullard that was able to make the apprehension. So just want to let y'all know about some of the good things that now, unfortunately, they need their own person, but it's a neighboring neighborhood that you guys were able to, y'all officer was able to assist with.
And
But
before you go forward, I just do want to say something with that. Even though that's not our subdivision, that could have easily come into our subdivision.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that if your officer sees something, he's not going to say that, well, this is the end of my line where I'm supposed to patrol. He assisted. I think that's going above and beyond, because if he does that, that perpetrator could have easily driven or run into the Lake-Bullard neighborhood where it would have been a problem for our residents. So I appreciate that. Even though it was not in the bounds that he's supposed to patrol, I think that is expected of the Lake-Bullard patrolman. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, and he
I
just
agree.
felt like, he just felt like, hey, I'm at Lake-Bullard, but this is one big family. This community, New Orleans East community, is one big family. And when he saw the shootout and he saw the actual shootout in McKendall, he already prepared his mind to say, okay, I'm going to handle this. So we have given him an award. We can't give him any gift cards to any restaurants because of COVID, but we've given him a monetary award for doing such a great job in that matter.
Can we
also
publicly? Can we know his name to actually?
Yes, it's Sergeant. It was 2 officers. It was Sergeant Butler. That's the sergeant that's in the neighborhood every night, along with the officer Harold Doss.
Okay.
Harold Doss, yeah.
Lake-Bullard does appreciate their service.
Yeah.
Running after someone with their gun in a shootout is something that I'm not willing to do. So I appreciate those who are.
Well, they're trained for it and they're prepared for it. And NOPD is also going to be giving him a coin of bravery for that. So, I'm glad that he was there. Also, another thing that just want to let you guys know, we are also at Eastover now because there are no restrooms that the officers can use for COVID. We have our officers going to Eastover to use the restrooms because there's nowhere that they can go. If they went to the office, it would be too far away because we own Lake Forest and Plaza Drive. So Eastover is the location that the officers are using the restroom at. It's actually right up the street. They were gracious enough to allow us to use that facility in their booth. So just kind of want to let you guys know if you see a vehicle heading that way. Now we do provide security for Eastover now. It kind of opened the door for us to be able to use the restroom there. So just kind of want to give you guys an idea of, what was going on. So they have 2 breaks in the night to use the restroom, and that's where they're going.
Okay, thank you for that. So over the past, basically everything since the pandemic has begun, I have received a few complaints about security. I've compiled a list. Some of these complaints were resolved by myself. And I thought, even though these residents haven't submitted an email, if they've openly sent me or spoken to me about a complaint, that I would at least address them.
Absolutely.
So I had 2 residents say that they have not observed security in our subdivision. They asked for the times that security is scheduled. I explained to them that the hours of operation are not public. I explained to them that that the board voted on this. And we did this because we felt if criminals knew the times of patrols, they can circumvent those patrols. So we wanted to keep those hours between as few people as possible. And currently, there are only 2 board members who can actually know the hours of security.
Mhm.
So I explained that to her and she was okay with that. And then I told her one of the reasons she may not see security is because you guys patrol heavily overnight. Even though I won't say the hours,
Mhm.
you guys patrol us when we sleep. You protect
Yeah.
us when we're not awake. So I let her know that shifts can start anywhere between 9 p.m. and midnight.
Mhm.
So unless you're up at midnight every day, you may not see security. So I basically, because
And we're covering all parcels. It's not just one street that we're covering.
exactly,
We're covering the entire Lake-Bullard community that's in the boundary that you guys have. And so we have to go through every street, make sure that every parcel is protected, not just one parcel in
absolutely.
the neighborhood. Yeah.
And when I explained that to them, they were actually satisfied with those answers. They understood the reason why we keep the hours secret. And then they also understood that, well, I mean, they were used to security always patrolling 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And that
Mhm.
changed when you guys took over. So they were expecting to see you between 10 p.m. and midnight. And I know some of your shifts start at midnight. So they
Yeah.
were satisfied with that, and as well as I. We had one resident who complained that she would call the security number and no one would answer. She said she wanted security to watch her when she got in late. After I discussed this with her for a while, something told me to check the number that she was calling. She
Yeah.
was calling the previous security's phone number and not the new one. So what I did to resolve that, the flyer that you guys have put on people's doors, I gave her a screenshot of the new number for security. And this has been the number since SEAL has been patrolling Lake-Bullard, but she had the old security company's number. So the company we no longer use, that's why she wasn't getting an answer.
And look, also that
Yes.
241-70, that number that's on there, that 241-7874, that's a 24-hour dispatch number. So at any moment, you guys can call that number if someone's available.
Okay, and thank you for that. But
Could you repeat, excuse me, could you repeat that phone number?
I'll put it close to the camera, but it's 504-248-7174.
Okay. Cause see, I don't have that number either.
So recently, SEAL actually went and put these flyers on every resident's door again.
I don't doubt that. I don't always pay attention, so that's on me.
Okay,
And also,
so what we'll do is I'll
also-
have Lisa send this out again via email if she could.
Yeah, and also the number that was on the postcards was incorrect. So I'll make sure that that's corrected as well.
All right.
Okay, yeah, well, we apologize for that oversight and we will send that out again.
And Brian, can I
yes, sir.
real quick? Also, if you guys could take my personal cell, because I want to be accessible to Lake-Bullard. You could take my personal cell phone number down. Anybody can call me from Lake-Bullard at any time. It's 504-237-4713. So not only do you have the securities number, the direct number for Lake-Bullard, you can also call me directly.
All right.
And
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
have Lisa send that out via email along with the flyer for that. I really appreciate that. That is not required of you. You're doing that out of the kindness of your heart. And like I said, I appreciate the services that are being given to Lake-Bullard.
Thank you.
So some other issues that have been brought up, and these are not complaints, but these are things that I'd like to reiterate to the public as well as the board. And one of them we've already touched on, SEAL security hours. I just want to say that the board has voted on this in front of all of the residents that the hours would remain secret. We did this, as I stated earlier, because if everyone knew the hours, the criminals would know the hours. And then if they know when security is not here, then they just will do their crime when they know no one's looking. As Lake-Bullard cannot afford 24 hours of security. I wish we could, but we cannot. And even with 24 hours of security, we would probably need 2 or 3 officers. We do not
That'll be correct.
So we do not have unlimited resources, and we need to all realize that SEAL is a supplement to NOPD. They are not a replacement for NOPD. And we're going to get into a little bit of why of that in a little bit. But in terms of the hours, I am not willing, I mean, unless the board votes, obviously I obey the vote of the board, But as it stands right now, the board has voted to keep those hours secret. I will not give them to one resident. I will not give them to 10 residents because I believe that this keeps us safer. That's my opinion. And like I said, there are currently 2 board members who can request the hours from SEAL. And I have no problem saying the other board member's name, Velma Johnson. I asked her, I think 2 meetings ago or 1 meeting ago, she would be the second contact. So if for whatever reason, like when I was quarantined, Velma can call and say, when is security patrol? So we have a safeguard in case something happens to me. And if something happens to, both of us, then I'm sure the board petition Mr. Williams to let them know as well. But this keeps us safe. I really hope residents understand why we're doing this. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to get over on anyone. And, we have checks in place to make sure that patrols are happening and we follow them. So I just wanted to reiterate that on the hours of security. The next thing that I wanted to go over is policing powers with private security. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what private security can do on a public street. So I wanted to ask Mr. Rowe if he can address what his office is allowed to do.
Yes. So Lake-Bullard your streets are public streets. So we have to abide by state laws as far as if we can stop somebody or we can apprehend somebody. If we see a crime that's actually taking place, then yes, we can apprehend the subjects if we see a crime taking place. But we can't profile people. And that's one of the things that I need to be clear on. We can't profile someone and say they look suspicious so I can stop them. That's profiling. And that's you just can't do it because I'm a Black man and in my own community, I have been profiled and it's not a good feeling. And so somebody may say, hey, the vehicle that I drive looks suspicious, but I'm just in my neighborhood, driving in my neighborhood. What makes me suspicious? And so we want to make sure that we're not violating anybody's constitutional rights while we're working. But we do see a crime. If we see a crime in progress, then we can make an apprehension. Now, let's take Eastover, for example. Their streets are private. Okay, by their streets being private and not belonging to the city, we have all the right to stop somebody if they look suspicious. If we see somebody that we know don't live in that neighborhood, we can always stop that vehicle and say, hey, we're stopping your vehicle. We're trying to find out where you're going, so forth and so on. So public street, private street have 2 totally different sets of laws that they abide by.
Absolutely. And I wanted to make sure that residents knew that just because, again, if someone seems suspicious, you can't stop them. Now you can watch them. There's nothing to stop you from watching them, making sure that they leave Lake-Bullard without committing a crime.
Correct.
That is absolutely okay. Does anyone have any questions on the policing power? So if we owned our own streets, we would have more rights to restrict who's there. But I think we calculated how much it would cost to own our own streets. And again, we do not have.
And you would also have to fence it in.
Exactly. So you would have to,
in.
We would have to pay the public utilities for the street lights.
And maintain them.
Yeah.
And maintain.
And maintain them. And we do not have that kind of income. But I just wanted residents to know, so if you call security because you see someone suspicious, they're going to drive by and they're going to see what's going on, but they can't just say, hey, what are you doing here? Because technically that person has the right to be on a private street. Oh, I'm sorry. Public.
Yeah.
And how many times have you guys gone to a neighborhood and realized you were going the wrong way and you pulled in the driveway just to turn around?
I have.
Doesn't mean that you're suspicious. Hey, are you suspicious? Because you went in somebody's driveway and turned around? No, it's human nature. We all do it. If you go into a neighborhood and say, wow, I'm going the wrong way, someone may pull in your driveway and do a quick little turnaround and go back the other way. It can't be so heightened where we're not human anymore. Okay.
Now, let me ask you this question about it. NOPD has different rights with that. If they see someone suspicious, they can, and someone's reported it, they can stop them and say, hey, what are you doing here?
Well,
Correct?
Not even that, Brian. Not even that. Because you have to have probable cause.
Okay.
It's a very gray area when we say suspicious. Brian, if you and I got into a vehicle and we went into a neighborhood, Lakeview area, and we were in a vehicle and we were going in the wrong way and we pulled in somebody's driveway, does it make us suspicious? In the eyes of that officer who's working in that area, we may be suspicious because we don't look like we belong in that area, right? And so now that officer would have to explain to us, I pulled these two guys over? Why? What was the probable cause? We were simply turning in the driveway to turn around and go back the other way. We wasn't staking out the house. We didn't get out of the vehicle to go walk. Well, you're a realtor, so I mean, I'm pretty sure you deal with this quite often, okay? But we didn't.
I've been labeled suspicious. I get to all of my showings early, and I usually sit in front of the house. And I've had a cop ask me, "What are you doing here?" And I've got to. Hey, I'm a real estate agent for my client. There's a real estate sign on this house. And it's an uneasy feeling to be profiled just for sitting there. So I understand and I appreciate that you do not wish to violate anyone's rights.
Thank you.
We're getting more questions. All of the questions that are coming in will be answered. So the next thing that I want to talk about is armed security. And I mistakenly told a resident that we did not pay for armed security. We do pay for armed security.
You do.
I apologize for that. But so it was reported that we had an officer patrolling without a firearm at a period in time during the last few months. Can you tell us about this?
Yes. So not only we had, of course, during COVID, our staff couldn't go do the firearms training. There was nowhere that we can go. It was a lockdown, but you still needed to be staffed with an officer. So what we did was we put that officer as well as myself and another supervisor in Lake-Bullard during that period. Once we were able to get our officers to go back to the training, we were able to go and do what we need to do. We have some form of normalcy, but even at the range, we have to practice social distancing and making sure that those officers are properly trained with everything that's going on right now. And I'm very thankful because a couple of neighborhoods in the city, officers refused to show up because of COVID. They said, my family is more important, I'm not coming. And so thank God that we have officers that are committed to the Lake-Bullard neighborhood and community. They love the residents there. And so they're also committed to your community. But let me get back to that question. During that time, I was there as well as a supervisor who were both armed. So it was actually 3 people. And the 2 additional people we never charged you guys for because we wanted to have integrity and making sure that you guys had someone in the neighborhood that was armed.
And I appreciate that. And again, during this pandemic, nothing has been normal. So I do understand that if you can't renew your firearms license, I'm glad he didn't just carry a gun in lieu of that, because then that would have been a violation. So I appreciate that not only did you let him patrol without the gun, but you yourself patrolled.
Yes, as well as another supervisor.
So
you had 3 different vehicles that were in the community at that time.
Okay, and I do find that to be most acceptable and understandable during the pandemic. Does any board members have any questions or comments on that?
Are your vehicles, have your sign on the car? Yeah, are they plain cars?
I'm sorry?
Are your vehicles, are they labeled with your security?
Yeah, well,
okay.
Yes, the vehicle that's for Lake-Bullard, it's in the shop right now, had an accident. So we put one of our unmarked vehicles in the neighborhood, but we added additional lighting to the vehicle. That way we could be very visible to all residents.
Okay.
So you've addressed this next issue that has come up with residents about the bathroom breaks. Said it's been reported that CO Security has been leaving our subdivision to go to Eastover, and you explained basically because that's where the bathroom, where you're allowed to use the bathroom. I also find that acceptable. I prefer you to go closer to Eastover than all the way to your office. I think that's acceptable. Let's see. This issue came up. So during the previous tropical storm, this is something that we never discussed, but your protocols during a tropical storm or hurricane, how you guys patrol, because we had a complaint made that CO did not patrol. It was said that on the night that the tropical storm was supposed to hit, it was determined that security was parked on one of our streets with a guard inside. Can you explain your protocols and exactly what
Yes.
happened? And I
Yes.
believe
So
it leaves out that there was actually 2 vehicles.
yeah, it was actually 2 of us out there the night of the, matter of fact, it was 3 of us out there for the night of the tropical storm. But what we want to do is we want to place our vehicles at the highest point because we don't know if it's going to flood. We don't know if the rain is going to come in extremely hard. So we were practicing a protocol for a tropical storm that night of the tropical storm with the officer that was there. And the reason we want the vehicle to be at the highest point, because if the vehicle flood out, how can he assist anyone? And so our goal is to still be in the neighborhood, but also practice safety ourselves during a tropical storm.
Okay. And again, because of this, that you put another vehicle in the neighborhood as well.
2.
You guys with 2 vehicles. So you would be ready in case anything happened. You
Correct.
could to any street within 1 minute or less, really. So the complaint was basically that, well, if you're not moving around, you can't see crime. So I thought I would put it before the board, as I promised the resident that I would, that we would discuss, since they're not moving, is the board okay with the protocols that SEAL is using? Or do we want to just say maybe during a tropical storm or a hurricane that we don't have a patrol that night? I am against that idea, but in all fairness, I did say that I would bring it to the board. I prefer the security to be stationary because with a tropical storm, trees, wind, all types of things will happen. I like the idea that they're being safe, but I want them there. But I did want to put it in front of the board. If you guys wanted to say doing nights like that, we wouldn't have a security guard instead of having them just parked. Basically, the resident was saying they didn't feel we were getting what we were paying for because they're not moving. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I'd rather have him be stationed, even if he's with him being in the subdivision, we have access to them.
Right.
And it's only because they're practicing safety for themselves so they can actually prepare for search and rescue if need be. Because we've experienced Hurricane Katrina. If the protector is removed, who's protecting the people?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I have some good bit of questions from security about security. So I'll just go ahead and read them. June 27 at 11:33, Darlene James. How much time are the officers allowed to go to the restroom in Eastover each night? Recently, the guard was going to Eastover routinely at designated times for a period of 30 minutes or more at a time.
Well, unfortunately, I can't. I can't determine if somebody have to do a number 1 or a number 2. So, I don't know. I can't answer that question. Because if someone have to use the restroom, I'm pretty sure it would be offensive if I asked him how long would it take for him to use the restroom. But we want to be able to give the officers, also the human beings, and they're not machines. So if they have to use the restroom, they have to use the restroom. I mean that's the best way I can answer that.
Okay. Next question, and I'm going to be honest here. We're not following protocol the way we're doing this. It's supposed to be 1 question per agenda item per resident, but I have 5 questions on security from 1 resident.
That's fine. That's fine.
Just to be pleasant, I'm going to read them all. So Saturday, June 27th at 11:37 a.m. from Darlene James. Why did we have a guard that wasn't registered with the state of Louisiana that had been working for SEAL more than 6 months patrolling in our neighborhood?
That's untrue. Everybody has to be registered. We have a ledger of everybody that's registered with our organization. And you can always call the state board, which has been called on us during this time, to see if we're in good standing. And I'm pretty sure, Brian, you spoke with the head of the state board regarding these matters. But everyone is registered that work for our organization, unless we're dealing with some type of issue like we're dealing with COVID-19, or we may be dealing with an issue with going to the range. You have to realize that in the state of Louisiana, there are over 75, I wouldn't say 75. We have 65,000 security officers in Louisiana. And so we have to share in this area, we have to share range. We have to share classroom space. And so sometimes the training can be a little bit prolonged, but normally before someone starts for our organization, they've already been trained and gone through all the procedures.
Okay, it looks like we have, the same question was sent again about the bathroom break because, oh, so this was confusion. Basically, they thought we didn't ask that question, so they resent it again, but how much time is allotted for guards to be out of Lake-Bullard to use the restroom in Eastover each night? In the past months, security was going at specific times for 30 minutes to an hour at a time. So that they sent that again because they thought we glossed over it.
Mhm.
Let me go to the next one. This one, again, June 27th, 11:45 a.m., Darlene James wrote, and this is pertaining to the tropical storm protocol. It was not even raining during some of the night. Patrol was parked all night. So I'll say something about that first. So we live in New Orleans. We have all had tropical storm and hurricane warnings that turned into nothing. In fact, I've had a hurricane was supposed to hit and it was a beautiful sunny day. The protocols do not go into effect because it's raining. It doesn't go into effect when it's raining. It's because there's a chance of it. You don't know when it's going to start. No one can predict the weather. It may look fine right now, and then 5 minutes later, it could be terrible weather. So because the city was under a tropical storm.
Tropical storm, yeah.
Your protocols are in place, even though it's not raining. If I'm correct, your protocol is triggered by the city's warning of a hurricane or tropical storm.
Correct.
That, again, to me, that is very acceptable. I understand that, and I prefer to have you guys stationary, just because, like I said, what if the weather turns bad and something happens to that vehicle? Now we don't have security at all. Trying to see, I don't have any more questions from that, but I believe I had a question previous that was sent previous that, yep, I can actually go ahead and put on the screen. So let me share my screen. So this question was sent before the meeting on June 25th at 5:08 p.m. from Darlene James. Due to a lack of monitoring of SEAL security by the board, changes to security as a result of complaints by, due to a lack of monitoring of SEAL security by the board and changes to security as a result of complaints by residents, can we have at least 2 board members of the security committee volunteer and 1 board member to monitor security on a regular basis? So I have, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'll share it again. So in terms of this, this issue that SEAL is not being monitored by the board is false, absolutely false. And what I wanted to do was actually share my screen and show everyone some of the tools that I have to be able to monitor SEAL. So I'm going to share my screen again. And let me exit the full screen on this. And we're going to go to this operational dashboard. So as the president of Lake-Bullard, I have access to what is the operational dashboard, which shows me in real time what SEAL is actually doing. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because I know sometimes it's not easy to see on your computer. So I'm going to just go ahead and zoom in a good bit. So I want to first look at the date of this, 4/1/2019 at 6:15 p.m. Am I correct, Chief?
It should be AM. Let me see. All right, let me see. Was it 6? I wonder.
This is 2019. This is the first day that you.
Oh yeah. That was our times during that time. Yeah.
Yes, so this is when you guys were patrolling during the day to make yourself known to the residents
Yeah,
and
yeah.
flyers and things like that. So I have access to all of these reports in real time. I don't have to ask the chief to send me these. I don't need to request them. I have access to this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I wanted to show you this date because 4/1/2019 at 6:15 p.m. is the very first report that has been sent for Lake-Bullard. And these continue from 4/1 all the way until today. Well, not today because security has not started patrolling yet for tonight. But I get these every single day. And when I click on them and view them, I want you to see what is inside of them. It gives me a report number. And let me know if you guys can't see this clear enough. I can make it bigger if necessary. Can everybody see?
I'm okay.
Okay. So I get the report date 4/2. I get a report time 12:45 a.m. I get pictures of the neighborhood during that time signed by an officer, including the street names that they're on. I get these. We get on average, the lowest amount that I've seen us get has been 8 of these reports a night, giving all clear checks or reporting whatever crime has happened. I've seen the lowest has been 8, 1 per hour, and the most I've seen is about 25 on a very active night. We were getting reports like every 20 minutes, we were getting reports of things. And I can click on several of them. It shows, now during this time, they were introducing themselves to the neighborhood. So that's why you have a picture of someone's house. But we've got these, and I'm gonna go all the way to the beginning, 6/26. These show time and date stamps of officers actually giving reports. And again, I'm clicking on multiple of these to let you know they're all filled out. They all have 2 to 3 pictures. Well, this one has several pictures of the neighborhood, of what's going on, the time. So this is 11:20 p.m., the report time 11:24 p.m. So I can see if this report time was 2 p.m. the next day, I would know that this was made after the fact. The fact that I've got these date and time stamps let me know that, hey, they are patrolling. And go back to the main window. And again, we have several 6/23, 23, 23, 23. All of these are on the same date. And if we just, I can keep going through all of these dates. This is how I know SEAL is patrolling.
And we also do restroom break reports as well.
Yes, I saw that you guys started adding the restroom break reports because of the complaint that was received, and I really do appreciate that. That goes a long way to help things as well. But this cannot be faked. If someone were to fake this, it would take more time than it would for them to actually do the patrol. So when I have neighbors or residents telling me that they don't believe Lake-Bullard is being patrolled by SEAL, and I've got all of this evidence that goes back all the way until day 1, and I'm just clicking through these, as you can see, and I'll click on a few more. These are all different pictures. You can tell by the different lighting. They all have 11:43, 11:59. The report was sent pretty close to the same time that they started writing it. This happens every night, several times a day, and goes back. Now, I had a complaint from a resident that during the months of March and April, they did not believe that SEAL was actually patrolling. So I spent 2 hours going through every single day in March and April. Didn't skip a single one. I went through all of them and verified that they did the same protocol that they did every other day. They stopped, they took pictures, they wrote their reports at least 8 times a day, and sometimes even more than that. So for me, this satisfies that they are patrolling. And I'm gonna share my screen one more time to show something else. Let's see.
Maybe you could show them the pie chart.
Yeah, I'm gonna show the pie chart, but the GPS location. So this also can't be faked. They're taking a picture and this GPS location links up with Google, and it's up here, and it shows the location that they're in. So if they're doing a report and they're saying they're in Lake-Bullard and they're somewhere else, well, GPS position would, would basically let you know that, hey, this is not accurate. So there are plenty of safety measures involved to make sure that I can tell when Lake-Bullard is being patrolled and when they're not. Then we have the pie chart that shows all of the crimes that have happened. And I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger just because, no, I can't do that. Just to make this, a little bit more clear. It shows you the different types of crimes that we've had in a pie chart here. It tracks them, and then it actually outlines them by month and gives you the total. So most nights, the most that we've had is no criminal activity, but we do have noise disturbances, vehicle break-ins, hazard safety. We have all of these things that's actually tracking the crime. And this is being used to determine the hours that Lake-Bullard is patrolled. So when someone tells me that, or the statement that was made was that there's a lack of supervision of SEAL, I'm not disagreeing, I'm showing facts otherwise. I've shared my screen with you and showed you the dashboard that we are not required to show you. And I'm gonna get into an explanation of why in some of the questions that I've received 3 questions in the last 10 seconds, it feels like. But SEAL is being monitored by myself and the board. So if we go back to that question, what they were asking, and let me pull it up, if they could have so can they have at least 2 members of the security committee volunteer and 1 member of the board to monitor SEAL? As the pictures show, as well as other evidence and everything we've been discussing, there is no lack of monitoring. I believe SEAL's doing a good job. Most of the residents who had complaints were actually satisfied with the answers that they were given. And in terms of security being overseen, the security committee overseeing SEAL security, that is not possible. The Lake-Bullard board oversees SEAL security, not.
Brian, is there any reason why the pie chart couldn't be shared with the members of the homeowners?
Yeah, I can share the pie chart. So that's not what I don't, or what I'm not willing to share. What I'm not willing to share is the totality of all of those incident reports with the date and timestamps. Because
no, with the pie chart.
Yeah, the pie chart, I have no problem with sharing.
Look and see what's what.
Yeah, the pie chart we can share on a monthly basis if you guys like. Yeah. But the totality of the date and timestamps with all of the incident reports, I'm not going to share that because you can get sources and methods from that. You can figure out if there's a pattern to security times. I am not going to give all of that information because we agreed that we want to keep the security times private. We do not want that to be public. Now, what I will do and what I have done for the resident who's complained is I myself have viewed every day in the months that they said they felt SEAL was not patrolling. My own eyes. I didn't ask Chief for a report. I did it myself. And I determined, and I won't even say I determined, I visually saw that security was patrolling during the times that they were supposed to. There is no ambiguity. There is no hearsay. There is nothing otherwise. That is the full and God honest truth.
And Brian, can I say this? I represent the board. So you guys give me an instruction to do something, I'm only going to follow that instruction only. So I just want to let you know that, and I'm going to always be pleasant to every member of the Lake-Bullard community.
As well as I. So we got some questions. Let me see if we can read them. June 27, 11:53 a.m., Darlene James wrote, residents need to be able to speak during the meeting. Board members and residents are being hoodwinked. Brian, you didn't even know what was going on with SEAL. That's why you won't allow residents to speak. You began to look things up after I complained about SEAL. Although you had access, you and no other board members was monitoring. So I will address this. So obviously,
Brian, please do not address that.
Well,
I object to these accusations, and you don't have to speak to that issue. You don't have to speak to it at all. It was stated. You read the question. That's it. I object to
the only
those
thing that
accusations.
I will say to this is, obviously, I looked him up after a person complained, because I couldn't look it up before a person complained because I wouldn't know what to look for.
But you always had access.
Yeah, I've always had access, and I do periodically check these. Do I check every single day? No, I check when there's a reason to check. And when someone or any resident tells me that they don't feel like Lake-Bullard is being patrolled, I check. Next question on security. June 27, 2020 at 11:55 a.m., Darlene James wrote, share the reports for 320 and 420. As I said, I have reviewed the reports for those days, and there is nothing suspicious about them whatsoever. I've shared some of these personally with you. I can't make someone believe me.
And can I say this quickly, Brian?
Yes,
real
sir.
quick. So I've had several officers quit Lake-Bullard. I just want to, let you guys know. Several officers did not want to work Lake-Bullard because they feel like they were being harassed.
Harassed by what? By what?
A resident. By a resident. And
what resident?
It was Darlene James. And, I had to explain to them that she's a resident, but you're not privy to answer questions that you don't feel comfortable answering. And so, we have people that want to commit themselves to your community, but if they feel like they're being harassed, then they're saying, hey, can you just put me somewhere else? I don't want to be subjected to answering a barrage of questions every day when I'm going to work. And I still have to deal with the criminal element when I come here. And so as their boss, I don't want to put them in a position where I have to make them feel like they have to be there. I want every employee that work with SEAL to feel comfortable going into a work environment. It's actually my due diligence to do so. And so, I just kind of want to put that out there that we've had 3 officers that said, I don't ever put me there again.
Okay,
and so, yeah.
Go on to the last question I received. June 27, 2020 at 12:03 p.m. from Darlene James. Tell Brian the complaint of their roving and working in Eastover on Lake-Bullard's time. Again, that was explained that they're actually going to Eastover to use the restroom.
We don't have any access in Lake-Bullard for a restroom. So I have to make sure that our staff can have a location where they can use a restroom. I don't know what else to say about the restroom situation, but or even give a time. I mean, everybody on this feed has used the restroom. There's no specific time that you can go or not go. When your body tells you to go, you go when your body tells you to go. And somebody may be dealing with diarrhea, maybe dealing with cramping. We don't know. I mean, so I can't gauge a time on when they should finish their bowel movement and when should they hurry up and finish. I don't know. Can't answer that.
So I guess let me ask you directly, because it seems like the root of this is a resident believes that you guys are not patrolling 8 hours a day, which we pay for. Are you and your team patrolling at least 8 hours every single day?
Not only are you guys getting 8 hours a day, but you guys are also getting additional coverage by myself personally, as well as one of my supervisors. Because we just feel like, when we're paying attention to crime trends, and if there's a neighborhood or a neighboring neighborhood that may be dealing with crime issues, we want to give that additional coverage to Lake-Bullard to make sure that it doesn't trickle over. Based on past occurrences that happen in other neighborhoods. When break-ins take place in neighboring neighborhoods, we realize, you know what? Let's beef up the coverage during that time. When COVID came into play, we say, let's beef up the coverage, because even though the city of New Orleans is saying that we need to be locked down, that's what every criminal want to hear. If everybody's inside, then I can now go outside and do what I need to do, for as breaking in vehicles or committing other crimes. So we just felt like Lake-Bullard needed the additional attention during the COVID, as well as other occasions that, we don't discuss with the board. Like when we have our meetings, we used to go to the meetings at the 7th district. but of course, because we changed the commander, we actually got another commander now. So it's the second commander that we've encountered. So his name is Commander Gernon. We lost Commander Dupree. So with the meetings and the information that we would get every day from Commander Dupree, it changed when a new commander came in. So now that we're getting the crime trends again, we base what we're doing off of the crime trends in neighboring communities to Lake-Bullard.
So yeah, what I've observed since you guys have come here, things that we definitely did not pay for. Sting operations to try to catch the criminals pulling on door handles and breaking car windows. That's not in our contract. Additional
and we're not charging additional for that. When
exactly.
we give Lake-Bullard additional officers, or myself or our supervisor, we're not saying, hey, let's tack this to the bill. When you're committed and you have a good working relationship with a community, the whole goal is to make sure that we can do everything that we can to alleviate some of the criminal elements that's coming in the community. And so I'm passionate about Lake-Bullard, and I hope I've represented Lake-Bullard well when dealing with some residents. And I've always called you, Brian, and communicated with you when I had residents make complaints to me directly. And I've always given you the text from that resident to show you that I'm representing your board while dealing with that resident.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And like I said, the other things that I've observed from actually going through line by line to see, a lot of times you guys are patrolling longer than 8 hours.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 8 hours and 20 minutes, 8 hours and 30 minutes, and I'm guessing that's because, bathroom breaks and additional things like that. So just because they take a bathroom break does not mean that we're losing our time. I've seen them patrol in excess of the 8 hours a day when incidents go on. Obviously, when something happens, you guys don't say, well, this is the time of the end of our shift. I've noticed that it's extended until the issue is resolved. So
Correct.
things like that. We have one last question on the security issue. Saturday, June 27th at 12:06 p.m., Darlene James wrote, one guard was removed due to being unlicensed. The other quit because she was allowed sick leave. Rose allegations are false. I don't interact with guards daily or even weekly. You can respond if you like or not.
Well, that's untrue. A lot of times when the officers would come to me and they would tell me about the complaints with Ms. James, I would simply tell them continue to be nice, and make sure that you stay professional. And they don't want to feel like they can't speak to the residents, but when it becomes a harassing issue, I've had one officer that told me, look, Chief, I'm not feeling well. I just don't want to go back. Didn't tell me why. And then after I moved him, I asked him, I said, what was the real reason why you wanted to be moved? He said, I was being harassed. I just didn't know how to tell you. And so, dealing with the issues that way, it's been tough to keep officers in the Lake-Bullard neighborhood. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, if the harassment stops, and the officers can do their job, then we can keep someone there. But Lake-Bullard is the only community that I have where we are rotating officers. And if the officers are continually being rotated, then how can they learn the community like I need them to?
But Chief Rowe, you're suggesting that because of what they perceive to be harassment, that it's possible that we could lose security.
Yes.
Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. And I'm going to always do my due diligence and operate with integrity to make sure that you guys always have someone. Even if I have to personally be there, I'm going to always abide by the contractual agreement that was given, that we agreed upon. And once again, my integrity has been challenged by this person, as if we are just out here rogue and not doing what we were told to do by you guys. And the reality is I won't give her the information that we agreed not to give to everybody, So unfortunately, I don't know what upsets her about what we're doing. I pray for her that she can have some peace. I just don't know.
Okay. Thank you for, does any board member have a question or comment for Chief before we move on?
I have a comment. This is Velma Johnson. I do believe that everyone has the right to be free of harassment and persecution while at work or living on their own property. And if I'm not mistaken, other people, even neighbors, have complained of being harassed, not necessarily by Ms. James, but no one has the right to harass anyone, even on their own property or in a neighborhood that they live in, that they choose to live in. We want to promote community, and we want to make sure that we are living happily in our own community and be patrolled. I suggest that maybe we should have a definition of what transparency is so that we can continue to live up to that definition of transparency and let the community agree upon it, vote upon it, and put that in our bylaws. And at the same time, I think we need to put a definition of what harassment is so that I know I'm in management and I've always been in management. And so we've always had a policy on what harassment is because everyone has the right as a human being not to be harassed. So I want us to put that in our bylaws somehow. And Tamisha, maybe you can help us with that. And then we need to make sure that no one, as far as a resident of our own community, be harassed by any other resident in our community, as well as anyone that we contract to help us out to protect our community. So that's just something I think we may need to look forward to doing.
And Tanishi?
Velma, I'll welcome any recommendations you have on that or any similar policies you might have at the hospital or whatever to add to the bylaws on that.
Okay, so we did receive one additional question on security. This should be answered privately, I believe, but on June 27th, 1212, Darlene James wrote, "Since my name has been mentioned, what officers are alleging harassment by me? I need to know." I don't know how that works, but I would refuse to have any officer's name mentioned over this public thing. If she wants to inquire, she's free to ask you that, and that will be your decision whether or not you disseminate that information.
Yeah, I'm not going to disseminate that information due to possible retaliation. And unfortunately, the officers didn't want to be mentioned. As their CEO and boss, well, not just so much boss, but their leader, I want to protect them at all costs.
Absolutely.
And the reality is, the offender knows what the offender is doing. So when you're doing something, you know exactly what you're doing, and this is not going to be a tit for tat. The reality is, the officers want to feel like they can come and work in an environment that they can just do their job and not feel harassed.
Absolutely. Okay, so with the security update being completed, I said I had one comment that didn't pertain to an agenda item that I would address after all of the other agenda items. This one on Saturday, June 27th at 10:45 a.m., Darlene James wrote, "Why isn't the meeting conducted via Zoom for the board and residents in order for residents to actively participate in the meeting?" Well, I would say to that, we've had a very active meeting with a lot of questions that have been asked, answered in accordance with open meeting laws. I believe that having all of the residents of Lake-Bullard on a Zoom meeting would be very difficult to maintain order. And I believe that this is a compromise of a way that we can go forward. I don't think anyone's voice was silenced as all of the questions that we read that we were not even required to read, because it's one question per agenda item. We did not adhere to that. We read every question of every individual who has sent us anything during or before the meeting, as well as things that were sent previous or things that were just discussed as complaints. So I feel like this is a sufficient way for us to conduct business. What does the board think?
Right. Can you tell how many people are on the meeting through YouTube?
Yes, I can. I'm currently looking at it. I think we had a high of 15. Right now, 14 people are actually looking.
Okay. The only reason I ask because they don't come out to the meetings most of the time. I mean, I've been guilty of it myself at times according to my schedule, but we get a lot of complaints, but people don't come out and say anything. We would have their presence there when a lot of these questions are being answered. So I was just curious to how many show up. So many
And
times.
so
they're not
I've
there.
been monitoring that throughout the entire meeting. So I actually have my iPad in front of me monitoring YouTube. So I can see that we've had a steady stream of 15 people and we've got 15 watching again, 15 people watching now. Now, I'll be honest, we were one of the more heavily attended homeowner association meetings, and I'm proud of that. We would have sometimes 30 people who would come, and I can't wait to get back to doing this in public so we can, do this face to face. This is a compromise for something that we've got to do during this time. This is not permanent whatsoever. This doesn't silence any resident because, as you can see, I'm taking calls, I'm taking text messages and emails from any resident who wishes to address the board. We're doing it live during the meeting. We're trying to put out as much notice as we can. We're acting in good faith to let the residents speak. So anybody who says that we are only trying to silence people and not let their issues be heard, this meeting is a perfect example of why that's not true. We've heard every issue. I've brought up issues that I believe the resident forgot to bring up. I brought them up for her to make sure that everyone has a voice and everything, more information, not less. So with that, does the board have any additional business to bring forth before Lake-Bullard?
No.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'm Alton Newton. I motion that we adjourn our meeting.
I'll second.
It has been moved by Alton Newton and seconded by Brenda Hogan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Again, please send any questions, comments about the bylaws to us any way you see fit. You have the noellaservices@gmail.com. Most of you know my address, my phone number. If not, I will have Lisa send out my phone number as well. Thank you all and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.